The state capture inquiry has been hearing testimony from intended beneficiaries of the Estina Dairy Farm project. Now, yesterday it heard from Doctor Radebe, a former DA councillor, who claimed that he was attacked for reporting the collapse of the dairy farm. Now, Radebe referred to the people who attacked him as the personal forces of Mosebenzi Zwane, who was the Free State MEC for Agriculture at the time. Well, let's hear now from eNCA's Michael Appel, who joins us from the venue of the state capture inquiry in Parktown. Mike, good morning to you. Mosebenzi Zwane very much in the news, and it's not sounding any better for him, is it?
No, it certainly isn't. Good morning, Oli. And Dr. Radebe is a former DA councillor in the Pumalela local municipality that I've spoken to several times over the last few years. He's considered one of the original whistleblowers and was sitting in that council meeting in June 2012 when Peter Tabete, the former HOD of Free State Agriculture and Mosebenzi Zwane, came in there and on Radebe's version hijacked the council meeting as it wasn't an item on the agenda. It was also not minuted. The meeting was not minuted. It doesn't appear in the minutes, which is a strange coincidence. And this is where they were told about this project. There were 12 ANC councillors, 3 opposition councillors, so it was basically pushed through and approved as a project. And especially the issue of the land. It was that land, that 4,400 hectare farm was an asset that belonged to the Pumalela local municipality. It was an asset generating income for the municipality. It was then handed over to the Premier's office and then given to Estina on a rent-free 99-year lease for mahala, for nothing at all, which he also had taken issue with. And he noted that in this council meeting when he said, this is a dairy scam. He says he's a farmer that's been, for the last couple of decades been a farmer, so he has some experience in this. You need to have some sort of business plan when you're drawing up plans to process milk in a particular area. He says that they came with no business plans, no feasibility study whatsoever, so he smelt a rat from the very beginning. And over the years that I've interviewed him, he's always said that the intended beneficiaries, in his words, the politicians, they themselves were going to be the beneficiaries. Those were his words from one of the interviews I've done with him many years ago. And of course, for speaking out, for bringing some of the media there, for publicly going on television and being named in newspapers, a lot of people took aim at him. And this is where he says Mosebenzi Zwane, the MEC, then MEC for Agriculture, had his group of people that were going around allegedly terrorizing those that had spoken up. So a culture of fear, a culture of intimidation. This mirrors the evidence of Ephraim Glamini, one of those intended beneficiaries who lost Philemon Ngwenya, one of his friends and fellow intended beneficiaries, in October last year.
Yeah, Mike, because that's the point I actually wanted to come to next, this culture of fear and intimidation. The Commission chairperson raising issue with the Free State Police about why these matters seemingly go uninvestigated. Yeah,
it's simply just not taken seriously enough by law enforcement in Vrede. And after you have Moses Chaka, who's an auditor in Free State Agriculture, who's investigating the Estina Dairy project, he's dragged behind a bucky, he's tortured, he's murdered, he dies in a hospital later. So you have number one. Philemon Ngwenya is number 2. He gets stabbed, murdered. He's been vocal about the failure of Ace Mahushile and Mosebenzi Zwane. And then we hear of a third, Avusi Malaba, I think is the name. This was detailed by Dr. Radebe yesterday. Said it was one of his friends. He wasn't on the inner clique of the intended beneficiaries, but he was apparently in Zwane's bad books for some other reason, and he died in a hail of bullets. He was an emerging farmer in Warden, so that brings to 3 the number of people that have mysteriously died, let's put it that way, that have any connection, no matter how small it is, to this failed dairy project. And it's the police's failure to act on this intimidation and fear. The names, people have been named here yesterday by Dr. Radebe. He didn't spare any punches here. He said, it's this person was in the car, this is the person who pepper sprayed me. He claims going to the station commander to open up cases. When the constables deal with the issue, they say they need to consult somebody because there are politically implicated people here. So they throw it further up the ladder to find out how to pursue and how to progress with this case. And the Deputy Chief Justice, the Chairman here, simply saying that's not good enough.
Mike, the most interesting part here is that Mosebenzi Zwane sits on the governing party's decision-making structure, the NEC, which, by the way, sits today in Irene. Importantly, the Commission chairperson, has he intimated yet whether Ace Magashule or Mosebenzi Zwane are going to be called to that commission to account for clearly being implicated by the witnesses who've come there?
So how it works is at the beginning of every morning here, let's say you're dealing with aviation-related testimony, then any of the implicated parties who've received a Rule 3.3 notice that they are an implicated party or they are at least named, they will send their legal representatives or they will sit in themselves like Bruce Kolwane did. They will sit here and then they will listen to the testimony and then determine whether or not they feel their client or the person himself feels they have a case to answer to. They can either then apply to cross-examine the witness, or they can give a statement, a written statement to the inquiry. But it is up to the evidence leaders whether or not they decide to call these people as a witness to testify here. If they're not going to do it willingly, Mgambi, we know that thanks to the former president, we have exhausted the bounds by which you can call people here, so they can be subpoenaed. If they're not going to testify, they can give oral evidence, they can give a written statement. I have heard the attorneys and the legal representatives for one Ace Magashule and for one Mosebenzi Zwane sitting here. So one would expect that due to the damning nature of the allegations being made against them, that the inquiry is going to have no choice but to ask them to come and testify, and if they won't do so, then to legally compel them.
Yeah. Mike, just very quickly, who's on the stand there today on this Estina Dairy Farm project?
So Vrede is a businessman from Vrede. He was involved in this startup. He's more a red meat farmer than a dairy farmer, but he was involved in this Estina Dairy project. But there was a hiccup yesterday with the interpreter. So the commission adjourned. One suspects they're going to get a new interpreter here today. They're going to be picking up on Vrede testimony. And then there is an official from the National Treasury. I suspect it may be related to a Treasury report on this very Estina Dairy project that apparently the Agriculture Department in the Free State ignored to stop making payments to Estina. And then there is an agricultural economist who I think we suspect may be coming to testify about the knock-on effects, the price of milk going up, the fact that farmers who are dairy farmers in the Free State have no processing plants to be able to sell their product.
Michael Appel, live for us at the venue of the state capture inquiry in Parktown.